In the gritty streets of Walthamstow, East London, a deadly feud simmered between two notorious gangs, the Marley Boys and the Priory Court Boys. This turf war, fueled by control over drug territories, escalated into a series of violent confrontations that left the community in fear. The Marley Boys, also known as Marley Strip, are a street gang rooted in Leyton and Walthamstow, East London. They primarily controlled areas in postcodes E10 and E17. Established around 2015, the gang has gained notoriety for dominating the local drug trade through intense violence. By 2019, they were estimated to have between 40 and 50 members. They are responsible for numerous violent attacks and multiple killings, which earned them a reputation as one of the most feared and ruthless gangs in the region. Their rivals, the Priory Court Boys, were equally determined to maintain their stronghold. This clash of ambitions led to a cycle of retribution, escalating into one of the bloodiest gang feuds the area had ever seen. Around this time, other notable gangs in the area added to the volatile mix of rivalry and tension on the streets. Among them were the Beaumont Crew, also known as Let's Get Rich, LGR, originating from the Beaumont estate in Leyton. The Beaumont Crew had a fierce reputation and was known to be involved in violent confrontations, particularly with the Marley Boys. The rivalry intensified after the May 2017 murder of Elijah Dornelly, a Marley Boys member. He was fatally stabbed on Walthamstow High Street. This fueled even more hostility between the gangs. The Drive and Marlow Crew, DM, based around the Drive and Marlow Road estates in Walthamstow, was another significant presence. Known for various criminal activities, the Drive and Marlow Crew had shifting alliances, sometimes working with or against other gangs in the area, depending on the circumstances and stakes involved. They were thought to be loosely allied with the Marley Boys. Smaller gangs like Boundary and Coppermill were also active in Walthamstow, sometimes aligning with larger groups like the Marley Boys or operating independently. These gangs maintained a more localized presence, but contributed to the complex alliances and rivalries shaping the area's gang landscape. Additionally, the Stony Down Crew maintained a presence. This network of gangs created an atmosphere where control over territory was constantly shifting, and violence was a tool to assert dominance, fueling the ever-growing tension that led to a series of brutal confrontations across East London. In the following months after the ambush on Elijah Dornelly, both gangs engaged in a series of attacks, each more brutal than the last. The streets became a battleground, with shootings and stabbings occurring in broad daylight. The police, aware of the escalating violence, launched Operation Scepter in an attempt to curb knife crime and gang activity in the area. Despite increased patrols and community outreach, the cycle of violence continued, driven by a deep-seated desire for revenge and control. As the summer of 2017 drew to a close, the tension reached a boiling point. Both gangs were on high alert, their members armed and ready for the next confrontation. The stage was set for a series of events that would leave a lasting impact on Walthamstow and its residents. In this volatile environment, Katsem Mokrane and Joseph Williams Torres became victims of a feud that showed no signs of ending. The Marley Boys were about to get their revenge. On a cold November evening in 2017, 18-year-old Katsem Mokrane walked along Mount Pleasant Road in Walthamstow. There was nothing unusual about that night for him, just another walk through his neighborhood. But his killers had planned everything. They knew he would be alone, and they were waiting. They wanted to send a message. As Katsem walked, The quiet was shattered by the screech of tires as a convoy of cars suddenly appeared, cutting off his route. In an instant, men sprang from the vehicles, their faces masked, weapons glinting under the streetlights. There was no time for words, no hesitation. They moved with brutal precision, each one with a role to play in what was a carefully coordinated hit. The attack was fast and ruthless. The men chased Kachem before a blade struck him in the abdomen. A single, fatal wound that left him on the pavement, gasping for breath. Within moments, his attackers disappeared into the night. Neighbors who heard the noise and came running found Kachem slumped, his life draining away, with the assailants long gone. 4 days later, he was dead. But this wasn't just another death, it was payback. Kachem's murder was meant to settle a score. For the gangs involved, there was no backing down, no forgiving and forgetting. This was about respect, loyalty, and territory. It was the kind of act that could only mean one thing. The streets of Walthamstow were heading for an all-out war. In the wake of Kacem Mokrane's brutal murder, the already volatile streets of Walthamstow, East London, descended into chaos. This assassination was a clear message to their rivals. No slight would go unanswered. The Priory Court Boys, also known as the Higham Hill Gang, were the primary adversaries of the Marley Boys. Kachem's death intensified the animosity between these factions, igniting a series of revenge attacks. The once bustling streets became battlegrounds, with shootings and stabbings occurring in broad daylight. Residents lived in constant fear, knowing that crossing into the wrong territory could be a fatal mistake. As the summer of 2017 drew to a close, the tension reached a boiling point. Both gangs were on high alert, their members armed and ready for the next confrontation. The stage was set for a series of events that would leave a lasting impact. In this volatile environment, more victims of the feud were claimed. The escalation showed no signs of ending. On the evening of March 14, 2018, 20-year-old Joseph Williams Torres was seated in a van, laughing with a friend on Essex Close in Walthamstow, East London. Unbeknownst to him, a deadly mistake was about to unfold. Nearby, a lurking dark sedan was parked just out of sight, with its engine still humming in the night. As the minutes ticked by, tension was building as masked figures watched Joseph from the car, their eyes fixed and weapons loaded. The van idled quietly, leaving an eerie feeling hanging in the air. Suddenly, the sedan's doors swung open and figures moved quickly, sprinting toward the van. They closed in with cold efficiency. The silence was shattered. Shots rang out in rapid succession. Bullets tore through the van, each shot fired, creating carnage. The friend ducked in terror, but Joseph took the brunt of the assault, a direct target in a hit that was fast and brutal. The masked gunman didn't pause. As quickly as they'd fired, they turned and vanished back into the same darkness from which they'd emerged. The investigation later revealed that Joseph was not the intended target. The killers had mistaken him for a rival gang member, due to an uncanny resemblance and similar attire. This tragic case of mistaken identity highlighted the indiscriminate nature of this gang feud. In the aftermath, law enforcement intensified efforts to curb gang violence in the area. However, the cycle of retribution continued, with each act of violence fueling further bloodshed. The streets of Walthamstow remained a battleground, where the line between life and death was perilous. The Metropolitan Police intensified their focus on Hamza Ul Haq, a prominent figure within the Mali Boys. Known for his heavy involvement in the gang, Ul Haq had been previously targeted in an acid attack. Detectives pieced together evidence linking Ul Haq to the subsequent murders. He and his associates were eventually arrested and charged with multiple offenses. The violence continued with an incursion by the Priory Court gang into enemy territory on December 17, 2018. As the clock neared 11 p.m., 18-year-old Daniel Fakoya, alongside two unidentified associates, commandeered a stolen Volvo and ventured into Leyton High Road, a domain fiercely controlled by the Mali Boys. Their arsenal included a loaded handgun, a long-bladed knife, and bottles of ammonia. Spotting four presumed Mali Boys members on the street, Fakoya and his crew sprang into action, discharging the firearm from the moving vehicle. The startled targets fled, seeking refuge in a nearby off-license, narrowly escaping the onslaught. Undeterred, Fakoya and his accomplices pursued them into the store, weapons at the ready. However, the intended victims had vanished into the back rooms. Frustrated, the assailants retreated to their vehicle, but their escape was short-lived. Within minutes, the Volvo careened off course, crashing into a shopfront on St. James Street. The trio abandoned the wreckage, leaving behind a trove of incriminating evidence. Forensic analysis of the scene was damning. Fakoya's blood was discovered on the driver's airbag, conclusively placing him behind the wheel. Inside the vehicle, authorities recovered the loaded handgun, ammunition, and bottles of ammonia, tools of a planned and premeditated attack. The Volvo itself had been reported stolen 10 days prior during a burglary in Essex, adding car theft to the long list of charges. The subsequent investigation revealed Fakoya's deep involvement in gang activities. While awaiting trial, he audaciously continued to operate a county lines drug network from his prison cell. This brazen defiance of the law underscored his commitment to the gang's criminal enterprises. In October 2019, Fakoya was convicted on multiple counts, including conspiracy to possess a firearm with intent to endanger life, conspiracy to cause grievous bodily harm, and conspiracy to supply controlled drugs. The court handed down a 15-year prison sentence with an additional 3 years on extended license, reflecting the severity of his offences and his unrepentant conduct. In December 2019, the Old Bailey witnessed the trial of Hamza Ul Haq, who was then 21, alongside co-defendants Loic Nengese, 19, and a 16-year-old male who could not be named for legal reasons. They stood accused of the murder of 20-year-old Joseph Williams Torres. He was fatally shot on March 14, 2018, while sitting in a van on Essex Close, Walthamstow. The prosecution, led by Alison Hunter QC, argued that the defendants, affiliated with the Mali Boys gang, had mistaken Williams Torres for a rival gang member due to his similar appearance, including the beanie hat he wore. The court was presented with CCTV footage tracing the movements of the defendants before and after the shooting, as well as forensic evidence linking them to the crime scene. The younger killer dropped his phone at the scene, allowing police to easily trace him. The firearm used in the murder was also linked back to the gang the killers were affiliated to. This had been a long and complex prosecution. Joseph was just a couple of weeks short of his 21st birthday and had great plans for his life. Despite the defense's attempts to challenge the reliability of the identification and the evidence presented, the jury found all three defendants guilty of murder. In January 2020, Judge Angela Rafferty QC sentenced Ul Haq to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 28 years, Nengesi to a minimum of 21 years, and the 16-year-old to a minimum of 18 years. While serving his sentence for the murder of Williams Torres, Ul Haq faced a second trial in 2023 for the earlier killing of 18-year-old Qasim Mokrain. On November 16, 2017, Mokrain was chased and fatally stabbed by a group of 10 males, including Ul Haq in Walthamstow. The prosecution, again led by Alison Hunter QC, detailed how the attack was an act of revenge following an acid attack on Ul Haq and his associates 2 days prior, on November 14, 2017. Co-defendants in this trial included Abdirizak Ali, 26, Luca Griffiths, 21, and Kamil Kazmierski, 23. The court heard testimonies from witnesses who recounted the brutal nature of the attack, with Mokrain being surrounded and stabbed multiple times in a matter of seconds. Surveillance footage and forensic evidence further implicated the defendants. In May 2023, the jury found all 4 men guilty of murder. On June 28, 2023, Judge Angela Rafferty KC sentenced Ul Haq to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 36 years, reflecting his leadership role and the premeditated nature of the crime. Ali received a life sentence with a minimum of 17 years. Griffiths was sentenced to 14 years and 4 months, and Kazmierski received 16 years. Judge Rafferty highlighted the defendants' eagerness to exact swift revenge, resulting in indiscriminate violence. The Mali boys had long ruled Walthamstow's streets, leaving a trail of violence and fear. They thrived on reputation and ruthless retaliation, and for a while, it seemed nothing could break their grip. But the law had been watching, patient and relentless, piecing together the crimes that marked the gang's bloody legacy. By the time the trials finished, Hamza Ul Haq and his men were no longer kings of the concrete. They were shackled and silenced, locked away to live out their days behind bars. The Mali boys had lost their grip, but the rules they lived by were still etched into the city's gangs. For Ul Haq and his crew, the story had come full circle. They once roamed as young men with big reputations, but in the end, they weren't legends. They were just names on a list, a reminder that gang life can chew you up and leave you with nothing. For more raw and real crime stories, hit the like button and subscribe. Until the next episode, stay alert and stay safe.